Please welcome from BU Promise, Tracy, first everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's been so inspirational being here today and listening to the speakers and the music. It's a real privilege for me because I get to introduce Makaela Mamer, who's going to be talking to you today. Just before I introduce Makaela, I just wanted to mention, as BU promised, I'm working now. I'm actually new with BU as the Director of Education and Community Outreach. And I just wanted to mention for those of you who don't know much about us that we do, basically our focus isn't being ourselves. How awesome is that, right? Just being ourselves. Also, we support people in the community in Victoria and South Island in the areas of mental health, addictions awareness, and prevention. One thing we also offer or invite you to do and encourage you to do as a sign of support for anyone who's moving through any challenges related to mental health or addictions is to go on our website, check out the BU Promise, maybe show your support by signing the BU Promise. In any case, I want to move on and introduce our guest today, Makaela Mamer, and just a couple of words of introduction. Makaela is from Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and Makaela will share with you more of her story. But in brief, she was also in a short video that BU Promise produced. You can check that out online as well. Makaela was an elite athlete in the area of track and field, as well as soccer in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, in her province. She got involved with alcohol and some substances and became addicted and went and got treatment and actually came to Vancouver Island to get treatment. And she is, her story is a real inspiration. I'm going to leave it to her to share with you now, okay? So I'll pass it on to Makaela.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so my name is Makaela Mamer, and I am in recovery from addiction. I just want to start by telling you a little bit of my background, the family that I come from. I grew up in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, if any of you know where that is. It is a small city in southwest Saskatchewan. I have two older brothers. My parents are still married to this day. I had an absolutely amazing childhood. And I think that a very common misconception of addiction is that we come from, like families that cause a lot of trauma, broken families, and like that was just not the case for me. And I know that that is the case for a lot of people, but that is not a part of my story. My family was very close growing up. We did a lot of things together. We went on trips together, and my parents did the best that they could. As Tracy said, I was very involved in sports. And like I thought for sure my future was in sports. Um, like I was a provincial medalist in track and field throughout school. Like I was very, very fast. I was like one of the leading goal scorers on my provincial team in Saskatchewan for soccer. We ended up going to nationals in my grade 10 year in New Brunswick. And, I was just always involved in sports. And, I didn't really realize what was going on inside me as I was going through middle school and high school. Um, so I started drinking at the age of 13. I was hanging out with people that were older than me. They were drinking, and I thought, that looks fun. I'm going to try that. And like everybody was doing it, right? Like it was just something that everybody did. So the first time that I drank, I blacked out. I didn't remember anything that I did. And when I woke up the next morning, I was like, that was awesome. I want to do that again. Um, and I don't know what I thought was so awesome about it because I don't know what I actually did. But I liked the feeling that it gave me, right? Like I like the feeling that it gave me that I don't have to think about who I am because I didn't know at the time, but I actually have like a lot of self-hatred. Um, I had very, very low self-worth. I hated the person that I was. I had so many accomplishments and I had so many things going for me, but that low self-worth, it really, really took me down. Um, for me, like middle school and high school were really, really hard. You know, like I wanted to be in the in crowd. Like I bullied people, people bullied me. Um, and it was just hard, right? Like I was trying to figure out who I was on top of trying to fit in and doing everything that I could for people to like me. Um, and I think like that is a huge reason why I started drinking. So through high school, you know, I continued playing sports. I was in school. I was working a part-time job. I was playing on a soccer team in Swiftcurrent and a soccer team in Saskatoon. I was drinking every weekend, and I don't know how I had time to do all of these things, but I definitely found the time to do it. Um, so, and I didn't realize at the time, but I was keeping myself so busy that I didn't have to think about who I was. And whether that be with like alcohol or, you know, just keeping myself busy in soccer. Like, so I was just not thinking about anything but what I was doing in the moment because I hated thinking about who I was. So in my second semester of grade 12, actually, I should add that my oldest brother is also an addict. When I was in grade 7, I found him floating down the creek unconscious from drinking so much, possibly doing drugs, I'm not sure. And I also found him in grade 9 overdosed on his bedroom floor in the middle of the night. And he was like tearing our family apart. And I remember thinking like, I never want to be like him. I never want to do this to my family. And like I didn't really have much of a relationship with him because of that. I remember when I got into grade 9 after that had happened, he left, he moved to Edmonton, and I didn't see him for quite a while. Um, so I just like that thought of like I never want to be like him. I don't ever want to do this to my family, and I turned into that exact same person. So when I was in grade 12, I started doing harder drugs, and I remember being that person that would always be like, I'm not going to do hard drugs. I will never do that. I would just drink because this is okay. Yet every time that I drank, I did something completely stupid and I always blacked out. And there was nothing like walking into my high school on a Monday morning after I had been drinking all weekend and doing something really dumb and just feeling so much shame and guilt for what I had done and just felt like everybody was talking about me and everybody was staring at me. Um, so when I was actually blacked out from drinking is when I tried my first hard drug. I never like actually made the decision like I want to try drugs. I did it when my inhibitions were down and I had no idea what I was doing. And from that moment on, I was hooked. I could not stop doing drugs. Um, I would go to school high all the time. I would skip school, and like I was an average student, right? Like I had average grades. I was in all the sports I could possibly be in, and I stopped doing all of those things, right? Like I barely graduated. I don't know. I actually don't know how I graduated at this point. I think they just wanted to get me out of the school. Um, so I graduated, and within 2 months, I was arrested for multiple reasons. I had scholarships to go to university, and I turned them all down. Um, and you know, I was arrested, and I was put on probation, and I had very very many legal issues. And a month after I was arrested the first time, I was put on house arrest, and that was like 6 months after I took my first hard drug. Um, it happened very very fast for me, and I continued to try different drugs. My group of friends changed. I started hanging out with people that were doing the same things that I was doing, and because I would compare myself to people, right? So if I was hanging out with people that were doing things that I thought were worse than I was doing, I can compare myself to them and be like, oh, this isn't that bad. I'm not doing what they're doing. Um, and eventually, I just ended up doing the exact same things that they were doing, and I couldn't compare myself anymore because I was doing worse things than they were. Um, So when I got put on house arrest, I went to court and they gave me the option of going to treatment for 28 days or going to jail for 3 months. So obviously I took treatment, took the option of going to treatment. Um, and I went to a treatment center in Saskatchewan. I went a week after my 19th birthday. And it was a very, very small treatment center in Saskatchewan, and I ended up knowing 4 people in there. One of the people that I was in there with was actually one of my drug dealers since the current. So needless to say, I did not take it I just didn't really pay attention. I didn't take it serious. Um, and I left, the day that I left there, I got loaded. I drank again, did drugs again. And like within a month and a half, I was in another treatment center in Toronto. Um, and like at this point, like I was on probation, so I had curfew. I was to abstain from alcohol and drugs. I had 10 o'clock curfew, and I was always breaking it, right? Like I would never go home. I was always drinking. I was always doing drugs. Like I could not go a day without using or drinking. And I just like I was at the point where I just did not care if I went to jail. Like I didn't care what happened to me. I didn't care if I died. I didn't care if I went to jail. Because I was so ashamed of the things that I had done, right? And like that self-hate that I was talking about when I was in high school, like it grew, right? Like the hatred for myself got more and more. Um, so I continued on like that for a couple of years actually, and I ended up moving up to Saskatoon, and I tried everything I could to escape my addiction. You know, I wanted to stop doing drugs, but I didn't want to stop drinking, and so I would switch the kinds of alcohol that I was drinking. I would go to college, um, and none of it worked, right? So I eventually, I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day, and I was like, you can't continue doing this. Like, I hated the person looking back at me, and I just, you know, I just did not want to do it anymore. And at this point, I was living back down in Swift Current with my drug dealer. There was 4 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and we lived in very, very awful conditions. And you know, like I was being beat up by my drug dealer at the time. He controlled everything that I did, and I just wanted out. So I came to a treatment center here on Vancouver Island. It's actually just in Cobble Hill, and you know, I was just ready. I was like, I'm going to do everything that they told me to do, and I just took all the suggestions that they gave me, and I ended up staying out here after. I went into this treatment center for 6 weeks. I learned so much about myself. I learned that it was okay. I learned that addiction is a disease, right? Like I learned that when I start using, I cannot stop. If I have one drug, if I have one drink, I will not stop. And so they taught me in there that like I do have to abstain from drugs and alcohol for the rest of my life. And for me, that was really, really scary because it was my crutch. But like I learned who I was, and I got out and I went to a sober living house in Victoria, and that's where I got involved in 12-step programs. That's what keeps me sober today. And my recovery has not been easy. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the opioid epidemic going on right now. Being in recovery, I have a lot of friends who actually get clean, get sober, and then end up relapsing, which means they go back to drinking and using. And in my first year of recovery, when I was 9 months sober, I went over to Vancouver with my best friend who I had met through treatment. We went over to Vancouver for the weekend, and I fell asleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I found him dead from a drug overdose in our hotel room bathroom. I did not know that he was using. I didn't know that he had drugs. And I remember like being there in Vancouver in the middle of the night and 21 years old, and I just like did not know how to deal with it, right? Like I wanted to drink, but I always they taught me like through the work that I had done in recovery and like the self-love that I was slowly gaining, like I knew that if I returned back to drugs and alcohol, like that could have been me, right? Like I could be the person that was dead. So I continued on, and like through recovery, I've made so many amazing friendships. I've made, you know, like I have a relationship with my family today, like because my relationship with my parents got really bad when I was in addiction. So I've been able to rekindle that relationship with them. Um, and like I have self-love today. I think like the number one thing has that recovery has given me that really keeps me sober today is self-love. Right? Like I love myself today, and like that's huge because I went through my whole life hating who I was and thinking that it was not okay to be who I am, right? Um, and so and I think like that's like a really strong message, right? Like it's okay to be you. You don't have to turn to drugs and alcohol to try and be somebody that you're not. Another thing that I should add is I got a boyfriend in recovery. We dated for 2 years, and he ended up dying from a drug overdose last year. He also relapsed, and he relapsed back into using, and he died last year, the day after my 25th birthday. And you know, it's been a really hard year, and like I keep losing friends. I've been losing so many friends. I lost 2 friends 2 months ago to drug overdoses. Somebody that I know died yesterday from a drug overdose. And like that's the epidemic that's going on right now. Like back when I was using drugs, like this, I mean, the chances of an overdose is always there, but it is so strong today, and it is so scary. Um, Today, I work in the treatment center that I went through. In 2 months, I'll be 5 years clean and sober from all mood-altering chemicals. Thank you. And you know, like I've devoted my life to bringing awareness to this, right? Like so many people are dying. People are dying of all ages. It doesn't really matter where you've come from. Like all walks of life, like people are dying. It's not just street level people. Like people are dying in their homes. Like people who are recreationally using drugs are dying. And I want to bring awareness, and I want to show people like if you are struggling with drugs and alcohol, there is a way out. And all of my friends that I have today are in recovery, and they're examples of it as well. And so I just hope that like if you do know somebody who's struggling, I hope that you tell somebody, and I hope that you encourage them to get help as well, because it is possible. And the earlier that we get to it, the better, right? So thank you for letting me share.
Is anyone else a bit like me with some hairs on the back of their neck and an awful lot going through their mind trying to process another very powerfully presented piece, right? This is the thing, is as much as Makaela was touching on, we are surrounded by heartache and through growth and lessons of people that you had no idea, and then they're gone. But it's key to remember that in amongst all those people, there are people like Makaela who are shining beacons of light that maybe don't realize the power that light holds in that moment. But when they do, they stand on this stage and they showcase to you, you're not alone, you've got a chance to converse, you've got a chance to survive and go and get whatever the hell you want to get. It's that simple, but it's that difficult. But that's life. Unbelievable inspiration. Thank you, Be You Promise. Unbelievable.